Hello everyone, Sick here. Today I'm going to be doing a weapon tier list for Halo Infinite. Now this is all just based on my opinion and what I think of the game and what weapons I would like to pick up on the map. Essentially I base it on damage and also a lot of the utility, how easy it is to use, how effective it is against enemy Spartans. So to start off this list, I'm going to go ahead and make this just a full on, I am talking without stopping, no edits, no nothing. I will add some videos for this tier list, but I want to do my best just to be straightforward with you all and start this list off. So to start this list off, I'm going to go ahead and do the battle rifle at S tier. It's a very satisfying battle rifle, mainly because it also works at range, but also just has a very consistent and good feel to the battle rifle. Definitely one of my favorite in the series next to Halo 2, and it's really effective. It hits its shots like 99.9% of the time. It's not like the Halo 3 BR. Well, the Halo 3 BR back in the day used to work, but the MCC Halo 3 BR doesn't work like that one, which is nice, and also it just feels good. It's a very nice BR. Can't complain about it. Next one on the list, which I'll also give as an S plus weapon, is the good old assault rifle. Now the reason I'm giving it an S plus is because I'm comparing it to the other assault rifles in the series. And a lot of the time, you can actually use the AR over the Sidekick, and it actually works very well. It works at range, mid-range, and close range. Highly recommend using it even over the pistol. Like if you miss one shot in your Sidekick or two shots with your Sidekick, you should just use the AR instead, because the AR can seriously shred the enemy really easily. Next on the list is another S tier. It's going to be the shock rifle. Now for the shock rifle, the reason I put it as S is because it's like a sniper rifle, but it actually hits its shots. What I mean by that is if you actually hit the head with the shock rifle, it will eliminate the opponent. It's pretty nice. It's unlike the sniper rifle. I've had multiple shots with the sniper rifle where I actually hit the head and it doesn't give me the kill. Shock rifle is pretty consistent and pretty accurate, and also holds way more ammo. So if you ever have the opportunity to pick up the shock rifle, I'd highly recommend it. Also, I would definitely pick it up over the sniper rifle just because it has more ammo. It's very useful for trying to get a lot of multi-kills in big team battle. Next on the list is the Sidekick. I really relate this the most to the Halo 5 pistol, just in its utility and how effective it was. If you find someone that's really good at the Sidekick and doesn't miss a shot, it can be even slightly quicker to kill than the BR. And it's really insane if you find someone that's really good with it. I really enjoy it. It acts like a pistol, like at range you can miss, which is really cool, and it's really hard to hit long range shots with it. So it's mainly a close range weapon, mid to close range weapon, but its utility and its speed and its feel is amazing, and I'd highly recommend using that weapon. Next on the list is where we start dropping to the A tiers. So for me, the first A tier weapon for me is the Stalker Rifle. This one I really like using. It reminds me of the Carbine a lot, just a slower paced Carbine, and having a 3-shot kill, whereas compared to a 4-shot kill with the BR, that's a really nice smooth weapon. It has a very high damage output, which is really nice, and it's really fun to use. I actually really enjoy using it. It's so satisfying getting a perfect with this weapon. I would argue it's just as satisfying, if not more satisfying, than getting a perfect with the BR. I don't know if it's as satisfying as getting a perfect with the Sidekick, but the Stalker Rifle is an amazing weapon, and I highly recommend picking it up as long as you have good aim with it. Next on the list is the Mangler. So for this one, it has a high damage output as well, and also can get a really high damage to the head, and is a 3-shot kill as well. But this weapon is even more useful just because you can one-shot and then melee someone. It's like a shotgun up close, and also has utility at mid-range. The only reason I didn't put this at S tier for me is because if you miss one shot, the fire rate can actually end up hurting you at the end, because it fires pretty slowly. So if you miss a shot, then you might as well throw it down and switch to a different weapon if you have like an AR or something. But just the fact that if you miss one shot, it's very unforgiving. But it does wreck if you actually hit all your shots. Next on this list, I'll go ahead and just hit the rocket launcher. It's a great weapon. It's useful. I feel like its blast radius is actually effective in this game, and is realistic. It's not too crazy. It's not like a Halo 1 rocket launcher that's a nuke. It's effective and fair, and it's a great rocket launcher. It's aesthetically very well made too. I like the fact that whenever you reload it and drop the shells to the ground, it actually stays there as a movable object. Next is the Skewer. It's a one-shot kill. I use this a lot in Fiesta whenever a sword is charging me. It's my go-to. I like the fact that it one-hits vehicles as well. It just really makes this weapon feel like a powerful weapon. I don't put it at S tier, mainly because if you miss, there's no going back. Like if you miss with this, you have to switch weapons because it takes so long to reload. Next on the A tier list, and the last, or not the last, sorry, the second to last. Actually, no, the third to last weapon is the energy sword. The reason I didn't put this at S tier, I really like the energy sword in this game, and I like the look of it, and I like the feel of it. The reason I didn't put it at S tier is because if you have sword battles, it's kind of just like a melee to the death. Like you both die. It's like 4 swings, 1, 2, 3, 4, then you both die, and you just trade. I wish it was more sword battle like Halo 3. And for that reason, I moved it down to A. It's still a very effective weapon up close and it still wrecks people. But I wish there was like a B versus trigger, like a melee versus fire difference like Halo 3. Next on the list is the Heatwave. I'm also going to put this at A. I hardly ever use the side or the horizontal fire rate or fire method of this weapon, but I use the up and down vertical a lot. It does shred through opponents like a one-shot melee as well, which makes it super handy. I've had a couple times where people were hiding from me and I banked it off the wall and got them. Very fun weapon to use. Definitely one of my favorite additions to Halo Infinite. And the last weapon to go into A tier would have to be the Sentinel Beam. Now the Sentinel Beam can be a pretty bad weapon if you miss, but if you actually hit your shots and hit the beam on the player, and especially if you hit on the head, it's like the highest damage per second weapon in the game. And for that reason, I give it A tier, and it's very satisfying to use as well. It actually obliterates your opponents and they just disappear. Very fun and satisfying weapon to use, and again, the highest damage per second in the game. The reason I didn't put it on S is because if you miss, it's very unforgiving as well. Mainly that's the difference between S and A. S is like, oh, if you miss a shot, it's not the end of the world, whereas A is like, okay, it's a very good weapon, and if you actually hit all your shots, it's very, very good, but if you miss, it has a slow reload or slow fire rate that can actually bite you in the end. Now we're going to go on to the B tiers, Gravity Hammer. I do like how strong the Gravity Hammer is in this game, but I feel like there's no lunge factor to it like there was in previous games, which makes it feel very weird at times, and especially if you have a sword battle, the swing is so slow that it's really hard to tell when your swing is actually going to hit. Like sometimes it feels like, oh, it should have hit way later, or oh, it should have hit way earlier. For me, this hammer is not one of my favorite in the series. It's powerful, and I like how you can kill multiple people at once with it, but the slow swing rate and the inconsistency on when it actually hits for me is why it's MB tier. Next is the VK78 Commando. I actually like this weapon a lot, but its effective use against all the other weapons in the sandbox can be makes it lower for me. And for the VK78 Commando, if you kind of pulse it, so where the recoil doesn't get away from you, it's actually a very effective weapon. But it is very difficult to get it perfect with this weapon. It's actually an achievement to do so, and I've only gotten like 2 or 3 out of my entire time playing. But it's a very fun weapon, and I think it's a great addition to the series, and I have no complaints about it. It's a decent weapon, it gets the job done, but I'd rather have the BR over the VK78 Commando personally. Now the controversial thing that I'm doing in this video is putting the sniper at B tier. I know a lot of people are like, why would you put the sniper at B tier? It's such a good weapon. Like it's the OG, the main weapon in the game. Well, for me, I hate the sniper rifle. It's not satisfying to use. It's very clanky. There's no aim assist at all when with no scoping. If you get a no scope, it's a miracle 90% of the time. And unless you're a PC player, I'm a controller player, so for me it's very hard to hit no scopes with this gun. And the fact that the ammo counter is really small in it as well makes it pretty much a oh, you better hit all 8 of your shots for you to be effective with this weapon, because if you miss one, then your ammo is going to be gone in a split second. So what they need to do is have the aim assist a little bit higher for no scopes to help out people, and also in a way just improve the aim assist. And like, it essentially comes down to aim assist. I was trying to think of another way, but even with zooming in, it just doesn't feel right. I've hit multiple headshots and it didn't count, so it's just not a great sniper in my opinion. Next is the Bulldog. Now the reason I'm putting it at B tier and not higher is because the damage output at a distance is not really that great, and also it can be very hard to predict. Like mid-range, it does some damage, but sometimes it does more than less, and it's just very confusing on how much damage you're actually going to put into a Spartan, depending on the distance. And for that reason, I'm going to give it a B tier. If you're up close, you can still shoot in melee, which is good, kind of like the OG shotgun, but it just doesn't feel as great as the OG shotgun. And for that reason, I'm giving it, for those reasons actually, I'm going to give it a B tier rating. Next is the good old Needler. One of the best in the series, arguably. It does have a really high damage per second, and you can actually surprise some people using this. I've seen ranked players use this against players, and it actually worked very well. Like, if you're at mid-range with the Needler, use this, and if they're in a close corridor where they don't have any cover, it's a great weapon to use. But for the reason that it's only useful in small corridors and places where people can't get cover, it kind of limits the capabilities of the weapon. If there's a lot of cover, then there's not really that much capability for the weapon. Next weapon is going to be my first C tier weapon, the Disruptor. I like the utility of it and the fact that it adds shock damage and it still keeps hurting the Spartan over time, but this is more of a team weapon versus a one-on-one weapon. Like, you don't want to be found alone with this weapon, if that makes sense. This weapon is useful for vehicles and is kind of a fun weapon, and it does drain some shields over time, but you have to hit a lot of your shots in order to kill someone with this, and for that reason I'm giving it a C tier. Next is the Cindershot, and I know a lot of people would argue, oh, it's a better weapon. I agree, it is a better weapon than C tier, but this is on personal experience. I've done my best to try and enjoy this weapon. I've shot it at people in the back and it just goes through them. It's very, very good in campaign. Like, definitely pick up this weapon in campaign. It slaps in campaign, but in multiplayer, it seems like the projectile is very hard to predict. Sometimes it'll explode on impact to the player, sometimes it'll go through them, sometimes the tracking mechanism doesn't work as fast as it should. And for that reason, I'm giving it a C tier. For a heavy power weapon, I definitely would not pick this up that often in the multiplayer sandbox. Next is the Hydra. It is actually very weak for me, in my opinion, especially on vehicles. I haven't had a great experience and haven't actually had that much experience with this weapon. Maybe it should be higher. I'm not 100% sure. My few experiences with it, I've shot a Spartan with it like 7 times at a distance. Up close, it works very effective up close, because I've actually got a decent kill with it up close before in Fiesta. But when it comes to vehicle usage, it's only really useful against the Wasp, but against the Scorpion and stuff, it doesn't really do as much damage as I would want it to, and against Spartans at a distance, it doesn't do much damage at all. So I would highly recommend moving that one, keeping this actually down at C. Maybe you can argue for a higher tier for this one. And the last C tier is the Plasma Pistol, and the only real utility for this one is to knock down someone's shields, basically a nuke combo. And I do like the additions they made with the cooling function of the Plasma Pistol, like how it kind of the weapon kind of breaks apart when it's cooling, and really, really cool. I like the animations of this weapon. It's definitely my favorite Plasma Pistol aesthetically wise in the series, but as far as utility wise, I don't like the fact that they got rid of it EMPing vehicles. I still wish that was in the game, and for that reason I'm keeping it at C tier. And now for my D tier weapons, which you guys probably all saw coming. Pulse Carbine. I think the Pulse Carbine could be higher if you know how to use it and know when and how to use it, but for me it's just a very inconsistent weapon, and I've had times where I've used it and I've been able to get like a good burst on someone, then throw that weapon, then use the BR and get some great kills. That's mainly the utility for it. You don't try and get a full kill with this weapon. It's kind of like the plasma pistol. You get their shields down and switch to your headshot weapon because the damage is not great on it over time, especially to a player that has no shields. To a player with shields, it does a decent amount of damage. And then my last D tier weapon is the good old Ravager. This needs to be buffed. It does a decent job on Aquarius for me. I can have a story where the Ravager actually, on the heat up function, I heated it up all the way and fired at someone, and the burning fire actually got a double kill because there were multiple people weak in a corridor. That's about the only time I can really find it useful. If it's in an open area in a map, it's very useless. So yeah, the triple burst function doesn't really damage as much as it should. I think it should be like the campaign. I mean, whenever a brute has this weapon in the campaign, you kind of are scared because it wrecks you. And I think some of that should be implemented in multiplayer. I think a lot more people would use it. It does have a blade, believe it or not, so maybe it would be a good, like, boom, 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 whack weapon, you know, like maybe hit someone twice with it, then whack, and it'd be a kill. Maybe that'd be more useful. I'm not really sure how they can really... honestly, at the end of the day, just the damage needs to be increased for this weapon, and that's why it is a D tier. So that is my weapon tier list. So, what do you guys think of this tier list? Leave a comment down below and let me know if you guys enjoyed this video, and feel free to move my weapons as you see fit. If you're like, oh, I think the Cindershot should be A tier, not C tier, then let me know. I'd be happy to comment with you guys and start a conversation and see where you guys would place this. Anyways, thanks for watching.
That was sick.